Hey neighbor, we're growing something new in the vegetable garden this year that's never grown before. Tobacco. Well, there's a couple reasons I'm gonna grow tobacco in my garden this year. One of them is it just brings back memories for me. I was born in 1965, and my generation loves to talk about working in tobacco fields. When I was coming up, man, everybody grew tobacco. There's little tobacco patches everywhere. Tobacco, we called it backer. And we spent our summers in the tobacco field working. It taught us work ethic. You know, we had a lot of fun, simpler times in life. And I've noticed that we love to talk about it to the younger generation, and sometimes they pretend to listen, and sometimes they don't. But it's just fun for us to reminisce about them days in the tobacco patch. Because when I was coming up, we didn't have this migrant workforce that we do now, and the kids, the teenagers, is the ones that did the farm labor, especially in the summertime. They would actually schedule the summer break according to when the tobacco harvest would be ready to harvest, so that the teenagers, the high schoolers or middle schoolers, I started early, could work out in the field. That's how important it was back in the day. Now, my father taught us about the cotton fields, picking cotton. I don't remember that because I never did partake in it. I'm sure it was a lot tougher job than what we experienced in tobacco fields, but we talk about tobacco fields in my generation. So the one reason I'm growing tobacco in my garden this year is because it just brings back a lot of precious memories. Got a smell to it that I just remember that brings back those days back when we was young and carefree. Also, it has a pretty flower on it. So we're gonna grow it in the garden because it's pretty, brings back a lot of good memories, but also tobacco is wonderful to draw out stings. Insect bites such as bees and wasps, there's nothing better than to take some of this right here. We used to use chewing tobacco, but you can take tobacco with a little moisture in it, a little water, whatever, put it on that sting, and it'll draw out that poison and take that pain away just about immediately. So we're gonna dry it out, use it for insect stings, and also just enjoy the beauty of it in the garden. So tobacco can be a little tricky. It's a little tricky to germinate and get up. We grow the plants off in the greenhouse. Tobacco seeds is really, really small, and they're tricky to get to germinate and come up. That's the reason you don't want to direct seed tobacco. You always want to start it in the greenhouse and grow it that way, and then transplant it out into the garden. All right, so we're planting 3 varieties today. The first one we're going to plant is Southern Dolly. Southern Dolly is a hybrid flute-cured tobacco variety, and this variety here was bred up in North Carolina, where a lot of tobacco has been grown over the years. It's really a rich type tobacco, and it has this slightly sweet and mild flavor and aroma. It's a high-yielding, medium to late maturing variety. It has this kind of orange colored leaf to it. And I want y'all just to look here. Now, here's the thing. These tobacco seeds is real, real small. And these have even been pelleted, coated. See there? Now, these have not been treated. That's a clay coating on there. But they do that coating or pelleting so you can actually handle the seed. The seeds are so small, you just can't handle them if they're not pelleted. So I'm going to plant me a few of these right here. And yeah, I'm probably going to plant way more than what I need, but I got some neighbors that want to grow some, so I'm going to grow them some as well. Now, tobacco seeds is a little tricky to get to germinate. And here's the thing, folks. You want to make you just a little indention in your soil like I've done right here. And I normally do that with my finger. And then you want to put your tobacco seeds in there, but you don't cover your tobacco seeds. This is a little different than any other seed that we plant, with the exception of maybe some herbs. All our vegetable seeds we normally cover up with perlite or vermiculite. With tobacco seeds, you don't cover them up with anything. Now, you have to mist them pretty regular to keep them wet, but if you cover them up, they just will not germinate. It's kind of weird, I know, but that's the way it is. So we're going to put them in here, and then we're going to keep them misted. Now, as far as temperature goes, on the heat mat, I think probably somewhere between 80, 85 degrees is going to be ideal. And it's normally takes somewhere between 7 and 10 days for these things to germinate and come up. All right, next one we're going to plant is Shirey Dark tobacco. And this Shirey is an open pollinated, so yes, you could save your seeds on this one if you wanted to. This is that dark Virginia type variety here with a kind of what they call it, a mild flavor. It will produce a large leaf and it cures out to like a medium brown color, unlike Southern Dolly that has more of that orangish color there. Now this plant here can get up to 6 feet in height, and it can take a little cool weather there on the end. It's sweet scented, which is good if you want to burn some of it like a candle or whatever like that. And it produces an ornamental flower that's white to pink. And you know what? It's just wonderful for pollinators. So I'm going to plant me a little bit of this right here. Now what I'm going to do in my garden is I'm going to plant me a few plants of each, not a lot, maybe 10, 15 plants of each side by side, and kind of compare how they grow out and what they look like. I think that'll be interesting. Now back in the day, a lot of people smoked around here. Now today, very few people smoke anymore. But I can remember back when I was a young man and you went to church, all your deacons would be outside smoking in between Sunday school and church. And sometimes you had them closet preachers that would smoke. Now they wouldn't go out there and smoke with the deacons, but they would smoke otherwise. You'd see them around town and they'd be smoking. But a lot of your deacons smoked in church. It was just kind of a given thing. Just about all your farmers around grew tobacco. And nobody in the church back then or otherwise passed judgment on them because they grew tobacco. Now this day and time, it's a little different than that. But you know what? It was a staple of our economy, and it's what paid a lot of the help. It's what made a lot of the house payments and farm payments was tobacco. So nobody passed judgment on anybody that grew tobacco back in the day. All right, and the third one I'm going to grow is Heritage Gold Tobacco. Now this is a classic burley type variety right here, medium to late maturing for light air. You know, the way this burley tobacco is cured is you cut the whole plant off and you turn it upside down and you let it air dry. Unlike the Southern Dolly, which is a flue cured, and most of those back in the day were cooked off in tobacco barns with either wood fire or either gas type stoves. That's the one we grew around here, was the flue cure. But this burley tobacco here was grown more North Carolina, Virginia, places like that right there. Now this right here does well in different climates right here. And let's see what the seed looks like. A little different colored seed there you can see. Yeah, things sure has changed a lot in the last few years. Myself, I chewed tobacco till I was 15, from when I was 15 years old to when I was probably 40. And I mean, I chewed it religiously. Red Man was my brand of choice. We just didn't think nothing about it. I don't ever remember my parents say, Greg, you ought not chew tobacco. It was okay. My dad smoked, still smokes today, 85 years old. He has battled lung cancer, which I attribute to him smoking. But thank goodness I never did take up smoking, never cared nothing about it. But I have sure chewed a lot of tobacco in my time, and I'm glad I gave it up. And you know what? Back when I was coming up, a lot of people chewed tobacco. I don't know a single person nowadays that chews tobacco. A lot of people dip, but nobody chews tobacco anymore, and that's probably a good thing. All right, so we got our tobacco seeds in there. We've not covered them up, and we don't have a very big indention there for those seeds to sit in. And the reason for that is we don't want that soil caving in around it, covering that seed up. Because if them seeds get covered up any which way, they're not going to germinate. Now see this right here? That's that mist nozzle. That's going to be our best friend. And we're going to mist these tobacco seeds probably a couple or 3 times a day. We don't want to keep them too wet, but yet we want to keep them moist. And we're going to put them on that germination mat. In about 7 to 10 days, we're going to start having those seeds come up, and then we can pull them off the germination mat. Now, tobacco, it's going to take us probably about 8 weeks to grow that tobacco out in the greenhouse. And we want to transplant it out in the garden when our soil temperature reaches 70 degrees or more. And that, for us here in Zone 8, is going to be around May. So I planted my tobacco seed here at the end of February. That gives me 8 weeks to the 1st of May. It's going to be perfect time to put it out in the garden. Now, days maturity on that seed pack says about 65 days to maturity. That actually means 65 days to flower. So we're going to have about 8 weeks in the greenhouse, and then we're going to have an additional 60, 65 days out in the garden before it gets to flower. And then we're going to be able to enjoy that nice scent of tobacco if it grows in our garden, and that nice flower it has. Now, if you want to grow your own tobacco to smoke, hey, by all means, you're grown, you can do what you want to do. I don't smoke tobacco, so I'm not growing it to smoke. I'm growing it for different reasons. But if you want to do that, you by all means can take these varieties right here, grow them, dry them out, and do that. If you want to use them for medicinal purposes like we're going to do, that's fine. Or if you just simply want to grow tobacco because it's something different, I think it's a great addition to the garden. Great conversation piece if anybody will listen to you.